When I was born, it was the entire right side of my body that was twice the size of my left. The physicians didn't know what they were dealing with because physicians only learn about 20 to 30 minutes in the medical school about the lymphatic system. And he thought that my leg was a prop to get their attention to sign this bill. And he says to me, well, healthcare is a privilege. It's not a right.
Welcome back, everyone. So today we are joined by my friend Amy, and I'm super excited about this conversation because she is the first person on this platform to talk to us about lymphedema. But before we get into it, Amy, I'm going to hand it over to you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you. So my name is Amy Rivera, and I was born with primary lymphedema. However, I went undiagnosed for over 32 years, and that brought me down a rabbit hole of finding the truth not only about the health system, but also with lymphatic health.
So just jumping right into it, because you talked about being misdiagnosed for 32 years. So why do you believe like it took so long for you to get an official diagnosis?
There was a lot of misinformation out there. The first thing was that the physicians didn't know what they were dealing with. They didn't understand that they were dealing with someone who had a lymphatic disorder because physicians only learn about 20 to 30 minutes in the medical school about the lymphatic system. So they didn't know how to properly diagnose because they didn't know what they were looking at.
Wow. So what exactly is lymphedema?
Sure. So lymphedema is a chronic condition, often, again, misunderstood
Yeah.
about the lymphatic system. So the lymphatic system helps circulate fluid and filters waste, and it actually regulates your body's fluid and it filters nutrients and fats and things like that. So it doesn't just fight infections, what everyone knows it does. It does
Mhm.
so much more. It's like the glue for your body. So when it becomes damaged or blocked, this causes the fluid to build up in the tissues, leading to swelling, pain, and high risk for infections like cellulitis. And in my case, it can be hereditary, meaning it was primary lymphedema. I was born with it. Secondary lymphedema can be from surgery, injury, any type of trauma to the lymphatic system or vessels or nodes that can cause secondary lymphedema. But beyond just the swelling, it also impacts a person's physical, emotional, and social well-being every day. And your body makes between 4 and 6 liters of lymphatic fluid a day. It doesn't stop. So there is no break. And if you have lymphedema, you don't get a break.
Now that you've talked about that and, being on this journey in modern medicine, like recently, do you think, are there like certain tests or markers that doctors can look for to be able to diagnose you early on? Or will
Yes,
most
absolutely.
people have to go through the journey you went through?
Yeah, that's the goal. We don't want anyone to walk alone for 32 years, right?
Yeah.
Um, so there are tests now, and they were tests years ago, but they weren't readily available to certain areas and people and demographics. But the first test is a lymphocytography, and that is where they inject a tracer between your fingers and toes. So fun.
Wow.
They inject the tracer, and then you wait for a period of time, and then you get like an MRI or some sort of imaging done to see where that tracer has stopped. Wherever that tracer has stopped, you can potentially find a blockage. But if the tracer goes throughout your body and then through your kidneys and out it goes, then you don't have a blockage. The other test is called an ICG. It's very similar to the lymphocytography, same format, tracers injected, but it's in real time, and you're able to push down on the limb and see the lymphatic vessels push the tracer through the body. It's amazing. And then the last thing you can do is have an MRL, which they look at the deep lymphatics. However, today, if you are, say you're pregnant and you have primary lymphedema and you think your child might have it, they're able to see during, like in an ultrasound, I should say, they will be able to see if this child has lymphedema or not. by the fluid around their little arms and legs. It's
Oh.
amazing what they can tell now.
That is amazing because I think about like, you talked about being misdiagnosed for 32 years. Like just kind of reflecting back to your childhood, did the signs of lymphedema start like very early on, or is it something that came about later on in puberty? Because if you're saying that now they can see it while you're in the stomach, is it, I wonder if like kids start like exhibiting the signs and symptoms of lymphedema as like a young child versus, hitting puberty and growing older. Like,
Yeah, so there's different stages of lymphedema, or different types of lymphedema, I should say. And you just kind of touched based on a few that you didn't even know about that existed. So the first one is primary. And when I say primary, there's different types of primary. You can have lymphedema onset at birth, like I did. So when I was born, it was the entire right side of my body that was twice the size of my left. So the swelling was
oh,
present at birth. And they told my mom it was the way she carried me in the womb and the swelling would go down. They really had no clue, right?
oh my
So
God.
after a few days, the swelling did go down a little bit everywhere on my right side of my body except for my right leg. And that never went down. That just continued to grow as I grew. Now there are children who were born with primary lymphedema, but they didn't know they have primary lymphedema, and it didn't start to present itself until puberty, which happens because of hormone changes. And then you have adults who were born with primary lymphedema, but it didn't show up until after they're in their 30s. And so there's different types of primary lymphedema, precox, tarda, and then, just congenital, meaning I was born with it. Those are different stages of life where lymphedema can show up as primary lymphedema.
That was a lot.
Yeah,
But
it's a
it's
lot.
wow, like it's interesting to think that, you were born with half of your body like twice the size of the other half. Because I remember like when my youngest siblings were born and going to the hospital, and I can only imagine like what was going through your mother's head when she saw you and she's like, my child is not okay, my child is not okay. And you're like, we don't really know what's going on. Like it's gonna go
Yeah.
down, it's gonna fix itself. And that must have been a very scary moment, just
Yeah,
trying to take it
absolutely.
all
Especially
in.
for like new parents, they've
Yeah.
never had children before. They were very, very young. So they're going off of the guidance of the doctors and they believe everything doctors say. They just
Yeah.
come from that time where they had MD behind their name. They know it all. And
Yeah.
that's where I like to say it's practicing medicine. It's not know all medicine. So, and we're all human beings. Not one person knows everything, right? So
Yep.
as they continue to take me to all these doctors who knew everything, the doors kept shutting on them and kept shutting on them. And I can't imagine as a parent what that must have felt like because I deal with some of these same situations with my own daughter because she has the disease as well.
Okay.
And I refuse to let the door shut in my
Uh-uh.
face. But back then, my parents didn't know any better and they didn't have the resources. And so when I was about 11 or 12, I think that's when they finally just kind of gave up. They just gave up and they were just like, we don't know what it is. And I kind of just grew up with it. And I didn't look like anybody. I didn't, or anybody, my peers. I didn't look like anyone in my family. I didn't look like anyone in my first job. I remember, I'm like, what am I going to do? How am I going to explain this? All these firsts were very hard on me to begin with because they're your first, but then you have this abnormal swelling in this leg that's attached to a body that doesn't look like it fits. You're like,
Yeah.
what do you do? And so I can't imagine how my family dealt with it. I always wonder about how, I deal with it differently, but how did my family deal with it? And it
Yeah.
couldn't have been easy for them.
No, it could not
Hmm.
because like seeing my mom have my youngest siblings and like going to the hospital, like you just want your child to be okay. Like,
Right, right. And you don't want anything to be wrong with them, especially when you learn that they don't know, they just don't know. I mean,
yeah.
how frustrating is that? We
Yeah.
don't know if this is life-threatening. We don't know if this is going to continue to grow. We don't know if we should amputate. Like we just don't know what we
We
don't
just
know.
don't
And
know.
um yeah, I just can't imagine what they went through.
Earlier, you shared that having lymphedema takes a toll on you in a lot of various ways, right? So it's like emotionally, socially, physically, and even like financially. So
Hmm.
when did you realize that lymphedema had become a financial burden to you?
Whew. So when I first was diagnosed in 2013,
Okay.
so I had to go to Chicago to get a diagnosis. That right there told me that this was going to be a long, expensive road because I had to travel outside of my town. Eventually, I had to travel outside my state, and then eventually, I had to travel outside my country. But just starting with traveling outside of my town, I had to go 4 hours away just to get a diagnosis. So you're talking about travel. You're talking about not just, the co-pays and the deposits and everything that goes into it, but then the expenses of eating and lodging and just all of that. And that's when I realized that having a disease period is expensive. It's just
Yeah.
expensive. And then when you have a rare disease, and then you have an orphan disease, which I have two more rare diseases. So I
Oh.
am one out of 100 people in the world with one disease, and I'm one out of 7.7 million people in the world with another disease. And then of course, I'm part of the 10 million Americans who suffer from lymphatic diseases, but with primary lymphedema, I'm only one out of like 100,000. So I'm extremely rare with these diseases. And when you're leading the way to get more information, get more coverage, get more awareness, you don't know what those costs are going to be right away. But I will tell you, they do add up a lot. They're very expensive.
So do you have an idea of like if you remember of like what your cost for like treatments might be? Because I know you've probably had like multiple different types of treatments, or even just understanding like the additional costs like to your monthly expenses because you're managing this disease. Do you have any idea of what that those figures might be like?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first surgery was right under 100 grand, and that was just for the surgery. That was not for the compression that comes with it. That wasn't for the travel. That wasn't for the out-of-pocket stay for the hotels. That was just for the procedure. The insurance only covered about 80% of that, so I had to pay the remaining balance of that. So I had to go on payment plans for that. Then you have to have custom compression garments, meaning they are specifically made per your measurements of your limb. And they have to be made in Germany. They cannot be made in the US. So I can't go to Amazon and just buy compression garments, which I don't recommend anyways, especially for people who have lymphedema,
Yeah.
because we have to have specific compression that is gradient compression to help move the fluid up and out of the tissues when we do move. So that compression can cost anywhere from $500 to $2,000. And you have to have that replaced every 4 to 6 months because it wears out.
Oh,
Yes. Hmm. That's
okay.
just for one limb. We don't know how many other limbs we have. There's people who have lymphedema all over their body. And when I talk about compression, it could be nighttime, daytime, it could be bandaging, it could be garments, it could be adjustable wraps. There's different types of compression for different needs. So there are many days where I have to change my compression needs based off of my disease. So I have to have a toolbox of all these different compression devices or garments, I should say, to, so I can choose the right compression for that day, which is very expensive.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's something like I've heard people talk about needing compression, but when you said like it's individualized per
Hmm.
patient, that was something I never even thought about. Because if you think about it, you need a certain type of compression, and everybody's limbs and everybody's swelling is different. So you
Yes.
can't just have a generic compression tool and think that it's going to be the most like effective for everyone across the board.
Yes, correct. And there are times where a compression product will work one day and might not work the next. or it may just stop working altogether. And then you have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, what do I need now? And we just passed the Lymphedema Treatment Act was just passed in 2024, meaning that compression is covered under the Medicare laws as a part as a DME. We're
Yeah.
missing a DME code. What they were trying to say is that compression is disposable because we have to replace it ever so often. Well, we just finally got the LTA passed, but now we're hitting so many roadblocks where the private insurance companies are going back in to their policies and specifically excluding compression garments. However, however, this is a federal law, and once it's finally through, the private companies will eventually have to change their
Change it
policies
back.
because, but in the meantime, what do these people do for their compression? Because if you go without your compression, like I said earlier in the beginning of the call in the meeting, your body makes between 4 and 6 liters of fluid a day. So once we get all that fluid out of the tissues, we need compression to prevent that fluid filling back up in the tissues. So if we don't have that compression, then all that work we did is just gone. And then it's exasperated to the point where then we might not be able to get the limb back down to an appropriate size to get the compression on. It's a cycle. It is
Wow.
definitely a cycle of frustration.
Wow.
hmm
It just makes me realize like how blessed I am to just have normal working body parts.
Yeah, it's like when you get sick, you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot what it's like to feel good. I don't ever want to complain. I still feel that
Yeah.
way sometimes when I get sick. But with my lymphedema, I have been um, blessed to figure out ways to be able to afford these things. Not everybody can. And so I know I've been at the worst severe case that you could be at, and I've been able to reverse the size and the symptoms. I will never be able to reverse the stage. It's irreversible. But going from where I came from to where I am today, it can be done, but it is really hard to do if you don't have the right resources.
Yeah. So just kind of like picking back off what you said, we know like in America, a lot of us have health insurance. And it's good that we're like a lot of people access it through jobs, and sometimes you get like federal, like government assistance and things like that. But the
Mhm.
reality is that having health insurance doesn't mean that you can afford treatment.
Right. And having health insurance doesn't mean that you're going to get it covered. So when I was in DC lobbying for the Lymphedema Treatment Act, I had
Yeah.
a wonderful conversation with a congressman that I will never forget. I think it traumatized me to the point where it just my work will not be done until I leave this earth with what I'm
Wow.
doing.
Okay.
And he stood there in front of me, and this is when my leg was at its the worst. So it was
Mhm.
200% larger than my other leg, and I was wearing an adjustable wrap. And he thought that my leg was a prop to get their attention to sign this bill. So
Okay.
as he's talking to me, he's looking at my leg. I'm sitting down, he's standing up, and he says to me, "Well, healthcare is a privilege. It's not a right." And I said, "Okay, so I get fined for this privilege that I have if I choose not to carry it." And this is back when Obamacare was really big, and if you did not have it, you were going to get fined.
Hmm.
So I said, so I pay for the privilege because I'm going to get fined, but then I cannot utilize the privilege because you won't cover it. Make that make sense. And then
Yeah.
I unwrapped my leg and I said, so is it a privilege or is it a right? And then I handed him my EOB of that year's expenses, and it was $340,000. And at that time, I was put on disability because I could not work, I could not stand, and I was a nurse. And then I went back to school and I got a business degree. So I could not stand, I could not sit, I could not do what an
Anything.
able-bodied person would do for 8 hours.
Yeah.
So their determination was put me on disability and then let her go. Well, if you would have taken care of the procedures early on, if I would have got a diagnosis early on, if I would have got my compression early on, the country would not be paying for my disability, which is going to equal XYZ because they're all about numbers. So I gave him my lifeline. Let's say I live until 75. This is the
Yeah.
amount of money that the country is going to pay for me. This does not include my infections, my hospital stays, and future procedures or complications. But if you would have done all these things prior to this, we would not be here today. And I know you love your bonuses. So,
Yeah.
if make that make sense. And he didn't know what to say. He didn't know what to say. He just sat there. And I don't know if he was more concerned with the fact that he thought my leg was a prop or the fact that I knew my numbers. Like,
Yeah.
and they were staggering to him, and I can tell he wasn't expecting to see these type of numbers. And he goes, well, how long are you in disability? Until you guys say so. So, and it just like he just kind of, it took him back for a minute.
Took him back.
So he ended up signing for the LTA, of course. He signed for it to push it through after that conversation, but it let me see where we are in the United States as medical coverage goes. I see it loud and clear, and there aren't a lot of people that understand these things because they make it so confusing for you to even read your EOBs or to read the fine print in this stack of papers once you get a new plan, and you don't know what is excluded, you don't know what this is, I mean, there's a lot of things people don't know, and they do that on purpose.
Yeah, and like when you say that, like we're currently in like open enrollment season, right? So a lot of people have to
Ah,
re-enroll or, maintain the same plan. And it's like it's so overwhelming. Just like going in there, seeing what's available, seeing like the new premiums, the deductible,
yeah,
like it's just so, so overwhelming. So I can only
yeah,
imagine what it's like when you're dealing with a chronic disease that goes beyond the basic minimum.
right, right.
And
Mm-hmm,
I remember there's this podcast that I listen to is by this entrepreneur. His name is John O'Brien, and I'm totally paraphrasing, but one of the things he always talks about when he talks about like change, he
mm-hmm,
always says that you need somebody, kind of like you need someone in the room to advocate for the change.
yeah,
Because a lot of times he's like, the people that are making these policies or these laws, sometimes they don't, it's not, they're not really thinking about you. They don't know you, they don't understand your challenges. And the only way like this change is going to be enforced is when you have somebody who represents you, who understands you, who walks in your shoes, who makes it to the table or who is allowed to make it to the table to start giving them a different perspective
mm-hmm,
about the challenges. Because
mm-hmm.
if they don't know, they just don't know. And so to them, it's like, what's the problem?
Right, right. It's funny you say this because that goes in hand in hand with insurance appeals. I can't tell you how many insurance companies or plans deny compression garments, surgeries, treatments, and what people don't understand is the individual that's denying that claim, if they don't have the proper education behind them to review your claim, it is a HIPAA violation and they should not be reviewing it. And when they get the denial letter in the mail, they have every right to request that person's credentials, their medical history, and what
Your
education they
expertise.
have on that particular, let's say for
Disease
lymphedema, that
state. Yeah.
disease. And so this is where I come in and I help people with these appeals, but they're shocked to hear these things, and I was shocked to hear it when I learned it. But people don't know that. They don't know that. And when the appeals come across these people's desks, they're just looking at the appeal number case. They don't care who you are. If they're having a good day, they'll approve it. If they're having a bad day, they're gonna deny it. I literally was told that by an appeal person once. It blew me away. It blew me away.
Wow. Like
Hmm.
it's so funny because a lot of times you're reaching out to them on your worst day. And
Right.
then the person on the other side is like, it just depends on how I feel that day. And it's like,
Exactly.
I
When
every
you might
time I reach out to
frustrated.
you is my
Right.
bad day.
Hmm. Well, then now they're really about to have a bad day when I get involved because I'm going to be asking all the questions. I need to see your credentials. I just helped a client. She asked for the credentials of the person. They said, "Oh, we don't really need to give that to you. It's someone we use in house." I said, "No, they absolutely need to get." So, I sent the letter, and
Yeah.
the insurance company called them. We're like, "Did you hire an attorney?" No, this is their basic right.
Yeah.
But the fact that you even asked that shows me where you're at. It's
Yeah.
all designed to not give out the money. It's all designed not to help people. It is designed to confuse everyone. And then people get frustrated and they give up. And that is where the disconnect is with the awareness, with the financial support, with all of it. If they're being gaslighted in a physician's office or in an insurance appeal or in a therapeutic office or by their peers or loved ones, they give up because it is a lot. It is a lot. And if they would not give up, if we could just grow that thick skin, which is very hard to do, and continue to push forward and know that you are the expert of your body, you are the expert of your health, you're the expert of your life, and you continue to push forward, you will get those answers. You're going to get pushback. I've been getting pushback all my life with it. Um, but I refuse to allow them to just dismiss this when there's over 10 million Americans suffering from lymphatic diseases and 2 to 300 million worldwide, and those numbers are continuing to grow. There's no reason for this.
There isn't. And you think about like people who have been raised in environments where basically the average person, right, you're not really taught how to advocate for yourself health wise. You don't know
Yeah.
the lingo. And then like low levels of health literacy, because even though you are literate, it doesn't mean that you're literate with medical terminology. So you don't
Right.
know what to ask for. You don't know what is good, what is bad. And maybe you're just not raised in a home with a lot of like healthcare professionals that you can like reach out to and just be like, hey, like, this has been going on. Does this sound right? Can you like give me a second opinion?
Yeah, yeah.
Because every time you have to go to a doctor's office, that's like another bill. And
It,
if you can't
that's
afford
all you're
it,
thinking about.
you
You're
just can't
literally thinking
afford
about how
it.
much is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
You know? I have an appointment coming up and I'm like, another Kobe? I have to do another Kobe? And I'm
Yeah.
not even looking at the appointment. And so even I fall into that,
Yeah.
thinking. And then when I fall into it, I'm like, I gotta pull myself out of it, but I'm like, how many other people are thinking this way, especially right now, given where we are in the world, and especially in the United States, given what's going on in the current season that we're in.
Yeah.
There's so many things that people are just they're losing hope. They're losing the stamina. They're losing the willpower, and that just shows me that I have to fight even more because I'm just getting started.
Mm.
I'm just getting started because um, you know, before I was a nurse, I was always a researcher. I always wanted to know everything because I didn't have answers for so long. I didn't have
Yeah.
answers. And so that was embedded in me as a child. And now I will do the research for hours until I find the answer. And I will contact so and so, and I will get on the phone, or I will fly here, and I'll do these things not just to help myself, but to help those who don't have that voice, who don't have that stamina, who are just like, I don't know what else to do. They throw up the flag and say, I give up. And it's sad because this is their right. This is their birthright. It is their
Yeah.
given right.
So like switching gears just a little bit,
Mhm.
you talked about being on disability.
Ah,
And as much as our healthcare system is not the best, we do have to acknowledge that having some sort of help is a good thing. But
mhm.
sometimes the thing that helps you can also be some sort of like a hindrance.
Yes.
So how would you describe like the reality of you being on disability, but then having ongoing medical costs and how that might impact your
Yeah,
quality of life as
absolutely.
well?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I wanted to be off disability for so long. I don't I am in my head I am not disabled. I'm not. But I have three diseases that progressively get worse and affect me in different ways. So right now I'm dealing with cognitive issues, which I'm going to NIH for further testing. And then I'm dealing with the fluid issues. And then I have different tumors in my body from the other disease. So it really, it's like, I appreciate the fact that there's support there.
Hmm.
But what I don't appreciate is they want to keep me there. They don't want to help me get off disability. They don't want to help me. Um, I'll give you an example of what I'm trying to explain. So I need another surgery. I actually need two more surgeries before I can technically be, well, I'm clinically disabled, period. But before these two diseases, I was supposed to have two more surgeries to remove myself from the disability, meaning
Hmm.
I could actually go back to work, stand, sit, and do all these things. I can't have these surgeries. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can't have these surgeries with the physician who started the first surgery because Medicare won't pay for the surgeries.
So they
But
won't pay for the surgeries with him in particular, or they just won't pay for the surgeries at all?
they won't pay for him in particular who started the whole process. I had to pay for him out of pocket the first time. And then when they put me on disability, and then I got my insurance to cover it. So I had to appeal it. It took me 2 years to appeal it. I got my money back, appealed it, which is where that HIPAA thing came in, because that's how
Hmm.
I won my case.
Wow.
Was one of because I went to federal review for the case. So I had to go all the way up to the federal government to appeal my surgical denial.
Wow.
And then they're saying now you are this, you're on disability, but in order to get off disability, you have to have these two more surgeries to improve your quality of life. But we're not going to pay for them. The first surgery I mentioned earlier was $100,000. The the second surgery I had was 63,000. The surgery I need now is probably another 35,000. And then if I did any transfers, that would probably be another 100 grand, which I probably won't do the transfers given my two diseases I have. But you rather pay for me to be on disability for my entire life than to pay for these procedures to improve my quality of life so then I can now be part of the workforce again. It 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 doesn't make sense. The goal is not to live on disability. The goal is to utilize it for the time that you need it and cover the things that you needed to cover and then get off of it and go back to being a
Independent.
member of society.
Yeah.
And that's the goal. But if our own government is not allowing that, or the policies are not allowing that, how do I say this? Um, why do you expect people to follow the guidelines? Why do you expect people to not abuse the system when you're abusing the system yourself?
Wow.
You you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
like you've never thought about it that way because, like not even just with healthcare, even like people get on government assistance for a lot
mm-hmm,
of different programs. And
mm-hmm,
sometimes it's like the system doesn't allow you to move forward. It's kind of like you
yeah,
try to do it, but then
mm-hmm.
it kind of brings you down and keeps you there. So then
It
you're
does.
dependent on it and stuck,
Yes.
but you're not really progressing.
You're not progressing. And then you get to the point where your mindset is, well, why do I even bother? They're just going to pay me to stay home. They're just going to pay me to do whatever. They're just going to pay me, so why do I need to? And I'm over here fighting to get off of it, and they won't allow it. It just so it starts with them. It really does. And so that's one area where yes, assistance great, but if the government is not properly utilizing the programs as they're meant to be used, it can fail you. It
Wow.
can fail you as an individual. You're not progressing. You're not improving. You're not inputting anything back into
Society.
society, and so what does that do for you?
I don't know.
Yeah. I have such weird I have a lot of views of this.
Yeah.
I do. I have a lot of views, and I see all sides.
Yeah.
I see all sides. And the question is, how do we make it an easy place for everybody? How do we improve not just assistance, not just coverage, not just awareness, but how do we improve the whole ecosystem? And it really starts with communication.
Yeah.
That's really starts with is communication. And so one of my modules in my course, I have a blueprint course for people who have lymphedema and lymphatic diseases. And one of the modules is how to properly communicate. We have to be authoritative of our own life and our
Hmm.
own journey. And sometimes we get so nervous that we forget that we are the expert. And when we're sitting in front of people or in front of a physician or in front of an appeals agent for your insurance coverage, or even talking to our peers or our coworkers or our friends and family, we get really nervous and we forget that we're the expert. And so it's really important to pour into that individual to boost their confidence and give them that assurance that they can do this. They can
Yeah.
do this. It's not going to be easy, but they can do it.
So, like, you were talking about your course where you're teaching people how to develop that tough skin and, advocate for yourself, even when you're getting the pushback from your doctor's offices, pushback from your insurance companies. So, like, I guess for someone like the average person, like, how would you encourage them to keep fighting?
To keep fighting,
Yeah.
the best way to equip yourself is knowledge. You have to understand what your body is going through. In order to understand that, you have to understand how the body works. And so in the course, we first start with mindset because you don't get a break from lymphedema. You don't get a break from the compression. You don't get a break from always advocating for yourself. But how you can improve upon these things is the knowledge, the skill set of understanding that you are the expert of your body. And in order for you to understand that, you have to really sit down and do the work. What is the lymphatic system? What happens when it malfunctions? Why am I swelling? What are my triggers? What causes my flare-ups? What does compression actually do? What type of surgeries are out there? The more you know, the better equipped you are for those conversations when you get pushed back. I would not have been able to have multiple conversations in rooms that I never felt equipped to be in. I didn't feel equipped to be in DC lobbying for the LTA. I didn't feel like I was going to be equipped to fight for my own insurance coverage. I didn't think I was going to be equipped to reduce my limb from being 200% larger than my other limb. But in order for me to feel like I was ready, I had to do the work. I had to sit down and do the work. And that's where a lot of people they don't want to do it because they feel overwhelmed, but it's really not. When you think about how would I feel if I didn't do this?
Hmm.
I'm suffering now. I'm already suffering. Would I suffer more by educating myself or would I improve some of the suffering? And that is what I tell people. We're already here. To, God willing, tomorrow is going to come. What are you going to do tomorrow? What are you going to do the next day? You're here. What, what are you going to do? And that's where the responsibility is on us as patients to be our own advocates. And in order to be an advocate, you have to do the research. In order to be a teacher, you have to go to college. In order to be a doctor, you have to go to college.
Yeah.
So you have to do the research to know exactly what you're dealing with. And that's the first thing we do, the renewal of the mind. You got to transform your mind from a victim to being a victor. And we keep hearing this all the time, and I know it's like people are like, "Oh, you've said it, you've done it," but I am living proof that I was a victim for 32 years. I didn't know I was a victim. I had
Yeah.
no idea because I didn't have that mindset. But then when I realized, when I started to get into those points where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm gonna start wearing skirts. I'm gonna start wearing long skirts and hiding my lymphedema. And if I don't see it, it goes away. Well, no, it just exasperates to a much worse stage. And
Yeah.
then I realized that I'm the one causing myself the pain. I'm the one causing myself the issues. People don't like me saying this, but I know what it's like to live with it. I know what it's like not to have a break with it. But I also know what it's like to be my own advocate. And if I'm going to feel better tomorrow by doing XYZ today, then I'm going to do XYZ today because I'm tired of feeling sick, immobile, tired. I'm tired of being being gaslit, lighted. I can't speak, being gaslighted
Yeah.
by all kinds of people. I'm going to be my own hero. I'm going to be my own advocate. I'm going to be my own researcher. I'm going to be my own leader. And you really have to take that on and just say that this is what I'm going to do. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's not easy, but you have every ample opportunity to improve your life with it
Yeah.
if you want it bad enough.
Like I resonate with what you're saying because, a lot of times they talk about like the only way to get on the other side is to go through it.
You got to go through it.
But it's so hard, but
It's
that's the only way,
You know what I do? I don't think about it.
actually.
I don't think about it. If I think about all the steps I'm going to have to take to get through the other side, I won't move. But if I think about one action step to get to the next one, then I'm okay. But if I think about the bigger picture, the whole picture, I would have never
Where you
been
are
able
today.
to advocate on a global level that I'm advocating now. Um, in 2013, when I started the Facebook page, Ninjas Fighting Lymphedema, it was only for me to reach out to other people to see who was suffering like me. I wanted a connection. I didn't meet anyone until 2015 who looked like me. So I wanted this connection. I needed to know there were other people out there for real out there, not just what the doctors told me about 10 million Americans and 203 million, people worldwide, but I wanted to see proof. And I was blown away with how fast the page grew. I was blown away with how many people were like, I have this too, and my doctor told me the same thing, or, I was shocked. And that's when I realized I was built for this. I went through 32 years of silence and suffering and loneliness and being humiliated and being bullied for a reason, because I wasn't the only one who went through it. And if there's 10 million Americans who are going through the same thing, well, there's a problem. And I love solving problems.
Yeah.
And so um, that's where I am with it. And I'm unapologetically doing this now. Before I was tiptoeing around it because I didn't want to hurt people's feelings. But if I'm not going to be realistic with you, then I'm not helping you. If I'm not going to tell you that your goals are attainable by putting your feet to the fire and showing you that you are capable of doing this, then I'm not, what am I doing? I'm not doing anyone a service. And so it all starts with the mindset. And it's easier to look at smaller action steps than look at the whole pie. Look at the
Yeah.
small piece. And then when you look up, I've eaten probably 10 cherry pies in my journey. And I look back and I go, wow, I did this? Because I don't
Yeah.
even think about it. I don't think
Yeah.
about it. I
That's
just
so
do it.
true. When when you reflect on your life, did you ever imagine yourself lobbying in DC?
No, I never imagined myself on TV. I never imagined myself in a bodybuilding competition. I never imagined myself in DC. I was so scared when I showed up in DC. I was terrified because I heard all these horror stories about how they treat people, especially women in DC.
Yeah.
And I've had experiences. Um, I did not ever see myself doing the things that I do. I mean, I've always wanted to be a writer, but I was
Yeah.
more in love with like the movies. Like, I want my tea and I want to write in the country and I want a
Yeah.
cabin. Like, I was in love with the idea,
Hmm.
but then I became a writer, and that is nothing what a writer does.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know? Like, that is not a writer's life. I write a lot. I am a writer. Um, but I've always had these big dreams and aspirations as a child. So growing up, um, I've had a very rough childhood. Lymphedema is the easier conversation to have about my life. And I didn't have good peers. I didn't have good role models. My parents did the best they could with what they knew, which was very little. But the one person who really inspired me was a stranger on the TV, and that was Princess Diana.
Oh,
And as a child, I connected with her spirit. I connected with her love for people. And I think part of that was because I never experienced that because people were too afraid to love me with my lymphedema. And when she hugged that individual who had AIDS, right there I knew that's the person I want to be. I want to bring happiness and joy and hope to people who are suffering. I never thought in a million years it would be people who are suffering with lymphedema. Never in a million years. Um, because I watched her growing up, this is crazy. This is crazy to say,
yeah.
but she is the one who kept me on the right path. A stranger, a stranger. And still to this day, if she were alive, that's the only person I would ever want to meet
Great.
because the spirit that she has in her is the spirit that's in me. Yeah. And that's only a spirit of God. What I think my journey is not the journey that's been planned for me. But did I want to do these things? Yes. Did I want to travel around the world? Yes. Did I wanted to be a writer? Yes. Did I want to make people feel good? Yes. Did I want to be a model? Yes. Not the Junior America one, but I wanted to be comfortable in my own skin. Never did I think it would be through my disease, which it all makes sense. It all makes sense and is divine. So I don't know where my journey is going to bring me. I don't know where it's going to lead me, but I'm in it until the end. I'm going to continue to fight and spread awareness. And it's really funny because in the beginning of my journey, I was told I was a liar, that I didn't have lymphedema and all these things. And now in my journey now, I just recently out of nowhere went viral on Instagram. One of my posts has 25 million views. 20,
Wow.
25 million, and I'm being told I'm a liar. I mean, I'm a liar.
Wow.
But you know what? It's great because it's spreading awareness. And that misinformation that people are DMing me with or posting on my content that I'm lying, that just shows me that I got more work to do. And that misinformation is the same misinformation that got me undiagnosed and misdiagnosed for 32 years. So they can keep calling me a liar because it just keeps pushing my profile in front of more and more people where I can actually correct that information and spread that information the right way. And to me, the more hate I get, the more awareness I'm going to spread because it's a very important topic. Everybody has a lymphatic system, and no, you don't have to be born to develop it, and no, you don't have to have cancer to develop it. You can develop it from anything as long as you have a working lymphatic system, which we all do. And so that is a really important, that's the most important thing for me is spreading the awareness of the lymphatic system. Not necessarily lymphedema,
Yeah.
but the the body itself and what happens when it's malfunctioning because the research shows that all these diseases are connected to the lymphatic system. Alzheimer's, dementia, lymphatic system. AIDS, AVLS, ALS, MS, I'm putting them all together, and a few others, all connected to the lymphatic system. And the lymphatic diseases as a whole outnumbers all of those diseases put together. But yet there's still misinformation out there. And if someone wants to fact check me, they can go to the Learn website, the Lymphatic Education Research Network website, and all of this research is on there. And it's just we just still have to continue to spread awareness.
For someone who is facing a similar situation, how would you and like what advice would you give them to manage the financial burden of lymphedema?
The advice of the financial burden of lymphedema. The first thing I would like them to know is they're not alone. That's the most important thing. We all feel alone. I also don't want them to feel that they did something wrong, where they can't afford these $1,000 garments every so often. It's not their fault. It's the system failing them. Once they recognize that, I want them to understand they do have control over this. There are nonprofits out there who help with out-of-pocket costs, like my foundation, the Rivera Foundation, formerly known as Ninjas Fighting Lymphedema. There are people out there willing to give you things. Therapists will give you products to help you. Um, there are payment plans. There are ways to get the things you need. You just have to be willing to do the work. And if all else fails, call me. Call somebody in the lymphedema community. Someone will help you. We are such a close-knit community. We will help the best we can because we know what it's like to be strained financially, and we know how important our treatment is because, like I said earlier, if you miss one treatment or one day of compression after you did that treatment, then all that treatment just went out the door and you're filling back up, and it exasperates those symptoms even more, and sometimes you can't go back, and we don't want that for anyone. So there's not a one answer to that question. It's use your resources, and your resources are your online communities, individuals like myself, not nonprofits like Learn, the NLN, and the Rivera Foundation, and Braylon's Feet, which is for children. So there are resources out there. When I first came on the scene in 2013, the only thing I saw was two nonprofits, and they weren't doing Learn, which is research, but the other one was not doing like financial assistance.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, moving to 2025, we have so many different resources, but they're mainly within the online communities.
So it's like you have a huge resource with your phone. Like, don't overlook it.
Yes, this is the big resource right here. This is something like none of us had. I didn't have growing up. My parents definitely didn't have. They didn't even, I mean, they didn't even I remember when dial-up was a thing, and we got our first computer and everything. So we've come such a long way. And one of the questions I get is, my child has lymphedema. What do I do? And how do I deal with it? And that is, I get this question a lot because A, I was born with it, so I was a child with it, but B, I also have a child who has a lymphatic disease. And the thing I say to people is that we are light years where we were 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, even 5 years ago. We are light years with research and testing and treatment protocols. I'm not worried as much as I would be years ago if my child was born with these lymphatic diseases today. I've gotten my daughter so much help that she's been able to reduce the symptoms so much that she doesn't even look like she has lipedema or
Wow.
lymphedema. This is not everyday case. This is not for everybody, but it shows you the amount of work you got to put into it to stay on top of it. And with the resources that are out there and the physicians and the therapists and just so much out there now, you will find answers. And sometimes, unfortunately, those answers are for some people We still don't know. And that's for me with two of my rare diseases. We
Mm-hmm.
don't know. They asked me to work to join the research team so they can research me so then I can then help them research other people.
Yeah.
And and I'm doing that. I'm doing that because I feel like it's my cause, it's my calling, and it's my passion to help people and to
Which is
find answers for myself. You know? So people are like, you're sticking yourself with this stuff and you're drinking this dye, and what's wrong with you? Yeah, I ask myself that all the time. But but at the end of the day,
how else am I going to learn about me?
how else am I going to learn? And how else am I going
Yeah.
to spread this information for you? So I am a guinea pig, knowingly what the outcome could be, but it's really important to me.
Switching gears a little bit, you talked about educating the world about the lymphatic system. So, can you tell us a little bit more about how that idea inspired you to start your podcast, Decode the
Yeah,
Drain?
absolutely. Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I was a nurse, and I learned just this much about the lymphatic system. It fights infections and diseases, and
Hmm.
it transfers fluid. That's all I knew. But then when I started getting into the research, I saw everything that was connected to lymphatic diseases, inflammation. And I was surprised to see like hormones and toxins and just all of this stuff that we're exposed to. And when I started to go down these rabbit holes of research and pulling up NIH's, research and stuff, I thought to myself, what is the easiest and fastest way to get this information out to the masses? And it's not going to be fun to listen to this podcast. It's not
Yeah.
some making a murder or all these other things, that you listen to podcasts or true crime, or it's about lymphatics. It's not going to be like super fun, but it's very vital information. And so what I did is I took the Faceless podcast and I pre-recorded between 5 and 7 minutes of information for people to pull up while they're in their physician's office or they're talking to
Oh.
someone and they're arguing with them and they say, no, you need a diuretic for this lymph. The diuretic will make the swelling go down, which is not, it's just not accurate. It will hurt you. It will hurt you. But
Oh.
instead of arguing, they can say, well, on this podcast, here's the research and the information saying that that's not the case for my disease. And even if they don't want to show their phone or show the podcast because they might be dismissed, they still have the knowledge before they go into that appointment. So my goal is to equip everyone with the knowledge and give it in mini bite-sized information, like little episodes, so I don't overwhelm someone who's listening to the podcast because it's a lot of information. Like earlier when I explained to you the different types of primary lymphedema and you were like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so these episodes are just little micro episodes with information cut up so they can digest it and then remember it and then go back and repeat it to their caregivers or to their medical team. So then they are being a part of their own um, medical team's decision of their treatment and how that's going to work. And they actually have a say so in it. And a lot of times, physicians are not aware of these things that affect the lymphatic system. I was just at Barnes last week working on a research project, and a doctor who is new, he's a new doc, he got 25 minutes of the lymphatic system through his entire educational time at school, and he got one slide. That was it.
Wow.
That, that's not acceptable, you know?
Yeah.
So that's where the Decode the Drain came from. It's just how can I make someone's appointment a little easier? Or how can I make the conversation a little easier? Or what if someone says, I don't really know how to, I get this a lot. How do I explain to someone what the inflammation does to my body? Or how do I explain to someone that I have this? Or how do I explain to someone that I'm uncomfortable being intimate? I get all kinds of questions. And so I take those questions and then I use real world experiences along with research and put them into Code the Drain podcast.
That's like really amazing because I know I was introduced to like health disparities research. And when you think about like the research and you think about going to like the conferences, you're in these rooms with people who speak this lingo every single day, day in, day out, day in, day out.
Yeah.
But then when you think of the average person, it's like this makes logical sense, but the average person can't understand and digest all of this information in one bit. Like,
Right. And it's a lot. So when you're at the conference, you got this glazed over look and you're like, what did I
yes,
just learn? Imagine going into a doctor's office and they're saying, you have lymphedema and there's no cure and it progressively gets worse and then you need all of this stuff and then you da 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 and then you're just like, wait,
what?
go back. What did you say I have?
Yeah.
We're still stuck on the word lymphedema. Why, while you were already way over here telling me my life is going to be this way, And so I want to be that first responder. Our therapists are a first responder. Well, I want to be the first responder to people who are newly diagnosed or even been diagnosed, but they don't know what to do. And so I want to take that glazed look off of their faces and say, here's again a piece of the pie, not the whole pie, but here's a piece. And that's how the blueprint course is created, and that's how it's outlined. It's we give you pieces of pies through the whole course. And then once you've eaten that pie, then we're going to test you to make sure you retained that piece of pie before we move on and then before we add. And then so we do it in mini bite-sized little modules so that someone's not overwhelmed.
Thank you so much, Amy. Before we wrap up, what are your closing words for our audience?
You are the advocate and the expert of your body. And we all are dealing with something. It may not be lymphedema, it may not be lymphatic diseases, but we're all dealing with something. And no matter what, you're not alone.
Thank you. Like, this has been such an educational episode learning about lymphedema, the healthcare system, advocacy, and I really hope that the people on the other side watching this have been able to take one or two things home with them that they would use to change their lives going forward. And for everyone else, thank you guys for joining us and looking forward to seeing you all in the next episode. Bye.